From the Green Room Studios at Bates Nursery in Nashville, Tennessee, it's Gardening Inside Out, a podcast with highlights from our Saturday morning live show, answering all your gardening questions, giving you plant advice for any space in your life. Let's start the show.
Hey everybody, it's Caroline Gant.
And it's Tyler Blankenship.
Just the two of us.
And it's Tyler Blankenship.
What's that song, Just the Two of Us? Does Will Smith sing it?
No, there was.
We can make it if we try.
He sang a cover of it, I think.
That's right.
But it goes much further back.
That's our song right now.
Yeah. Holding it down, holding the podcast down for another week. We're sorry Austin can't be here, and he's away right now. He will return.
Oh, don't
eventually.
You worry. He will be back soon enough.
But in the meantime, we got enough blabbing for to fill that space right now.
Yes, we do. Like the weather right now.
Yes.
It is insane.
Yeah, the cold for one, we've been cold here in Nashville
before. Last night
before.
at my house, 5 degrees.
Yeah.
I can't keep up.
Yeah, I remember one night in 2014, we had a polar vortex event like that, and it got near zero. Mm-hmm. And I remember wanting to go out my front door in not protective gear and just feel how cold it was. Because I was young and I was just like, man, this is crazy. Like usually you have to go way further north for this, and I'm a southern boy.
I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna feel it. Well, I've definitely been feeling it going to my car. And breathing it in, when you breathe it in, you can feel
the sharp
cold humidity. That's one thing about us though, is that we're so humid here that the cold feels colder to me than it does other places.
Definitely colder.
And some might argue with that, but I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I feel the same. And then you go further down and, usually things don't get that cold that far. And we're seeing a once in 100-year snow event down below us.
Oh my gosh, my friends in New Orleans,
us.
I didn't even know it was until I was on social media the other day and I was seeing all these stories and posts about all this snow that was in New Orleans.
Yep.
It looked gorgeous, but it does make me kind of wonder about the plants.
Yeah, and I did look, as I was scouring for information online, I did see a comment from a University of Louisiana Lafayette graduate student who said that the plants largely, especially the native ones, won't be affected too much. You might see a couple of plants not make it, but that doesn't mean that the whole ecosystem is going to
shut down.
Because again, it's in 1895. There was a snowfall record set all time of 8 inches, and it would have to get pretty cold. I'd say near the temperatures they are now for snow to accumulate like that. So it's not uncommon. Now, the more exotic species of plants, like tropical plants that people might have planted from other areas, that might be different. Some of those plants are sensitive to temperatures that, I'm not saying it's not uncommon to probably see the 40s sometimes down there, right?
Down there, but didn't you say it was going to go into the 20s there?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of my line with a lot of tropicals we have here, like houseplants, like philodendron and stuff that grow like crazy up there. But once you get down into the 20s, I've actually pushed them to their limit to see what they can take. And 30s, they can handle it. They'll have some dieback, they'll have some cold damage, but usually when I see 20s is when those plants that I was testing do not make it. Mm-hmm. Though a lot of their stuff is going to be in the ground as opposed to pots.
Yes.
Not everything, but...
And the ground down there is much warmer still than here, which, it's just, it raises a lot of questions. I'm sure as spring comes around, just, like we've seen up here when we have cold events and some things aren't hardened off, that you might see some damage and dieback on certain things.
But it'll be okay.
Yeah. Largely, it will be okay.
It'll all be fine. Just like we'll come out of this freeze. Our ground here is so frozen. Every time I've gone outside, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a hard ground.
Yesterday, I tried climbing one of the mulch piles that we have.
Here at the nursery?
Yes.
Was it frozen solid?
Yes, it's solid. It's like climbing...
Oh, I wish I had been here to see that.
It's like climbing frozen ice cream. You know what I mean?
I've never climbed frozen ice cream before, so no.
Maybe in my dreams.
How often do you climb frozen ice cream, Tyler?
That was the first time.
That was the
I've come up
first
with it.
time.
So maybe I'll do it tonight now that I've put it in my
Now I
mind.
kind of will go out there after we finish this recording and watch you climb some mulch ice cream out there.
I was surprised. I was like, whoa, look at that. It's not even giving in the least,
Yeah.
So I can't imagine, Now, David has mentioned before that, in the past, in the 70s, he would still be planting, even in weather like this,
When it's
because he
frozen.
said the frozen ground only goes like a couple inches or so.
That's true. Our frozen grounds, unless like we hit something, some kind of crazy,
Yeah.
something happened. Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah, you can just keep on digging
on digging.
after you break the ice, if it were. I know.
Good one, Tyler.
I know.
I will say, with all this cold and frigid temperatures and freezing ground and snow, it is almost making me more excited to get out there and plant once it warms up.
Yeah.
I'm itching to go out there and garden.
I've still got a mess of plants. I haven't had a chance because, when I got them, then the cold weather set in. I am definitely wanting to get busy.
Get them in
sooner.
the ground. You have all those laurels. Did you protect them at all, or did you just leave them?
They're all huddled in my garage.
Oh, you put them in your garage.
Yeah,
I
used
have a bunch of plants that I covered some with the
Mm-hmm.
tarp, but the rest are just, I said good luck to you.
Mm.
See you in the spring, hopefully.
Sounds like a Caroline move.
Yeah, definite Caroline energy right there.
Yeah, I used a dolly, and because I was like,
Smart.
I'm not breaking my back for these, and I just kind of like tilted them over, slid the dolly under, and there's like 11 of them, so did that
Yeah.
a lot.
They'll be happy.
Moved some other plants in. My jasmine that was overwintering fine looks bright red right now, like
Oh,
a
I bet
crimson
it's
red.
so pretty.
Yeah,
How about your eucalyptus?
do not do anything with
Good.
it.
I'm glad you're testing that one to see
I
what
didn't
she can handle.
obviously right now I didn't see any damage really,
Mhm.
like because it's just been happening. It's still next to my greenhouse.
So
My greenhouse
it's
is
getting
only a
little bit of
couple feet
heat
away.
radiating off of it.
Yeah, I keep my greenhouse at 54 right now, and it was struggling, at least air temperature wise. But I don't have a heater that heats the air. I have a heater that heats objects,
Oh.
and then the objects give off heat. So, according to the temperature probe in my greenhouse, it was in the 40s.
We're all struggling to stay warm right now.
But I'm sure that the root balls were fine.
Oh, I'm sure. Sure they were fine. Sure they're
Yeah.
happy. Happy to be in the greenhouse. They would have been toast if they were not.
Some things don't look happy in there. There's a fern that you gave, or a palm that you gave me.
That's
that
not happy.
It thrived this winter, and it looked about, I think when you gave it to me, looked about like how it looks now, like really brown and bad. But it just grew new fronds, and it was great. So I'm hoping it will pull through, as it's been,
I bet it'll be okay. It maybe be okay. I've been testing a rabbit's foot fern outside and a tree philodendron as well. I don't think they're going to pull through this one.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I don't think so. It might be okay. But I like to just test plants to see what they can and can't handle. That's how I know so much about plants, is all of the all the testing I've done over the years.
Yeah, you're a bit of a mad citizen scientist.
Yes, I am. I have a lot of plants. For those of you listening right now, if you're new to the podcast, I have a ton of houseplants, and I do rescue a lot of plants, and it gets to the point to where I don't have space for them. I've also got pets who mess with them sometimes. So every so often I have to sacrifice one to the porch to just kind of see what it can handle. I actually did one year it was last winter, I had a split leaf monstera somehow overwinter outside on a porch that was not protected. No covering on that porch. It had no leaves. It was like a really big monstera that I had completely cut back. So it had the stems, but no leaves on it, and it survived.
Mm.
I was shocked. I have no idea how that happened. Those of you listening right now may not believe it, but it did.
I believe you.
Yeah, something happened that kept it alive.
Wow.
It wasn't my faith in it. I didn't think it would still be alive.
Yeah. You know what plant that I haven't even thought about, including all over summer, over the droughts? I haven't watered it. I might have splashed like some sympathy water on it. Chives.
Oh, are they outside?
Yeah. Yeah, they're outside, they're sitting on top of my old composting bin facing the south. So
What are
it
they
gets full
in?
southern sun. It's in a pot,
Okay.
but it's just like there's like some of the soil's missing out of the pot because it's fallen over a few times. It's still green.
It's thriving.
It's still green.
Some plants just
And all
thrive on neglect.
Like it's just, Austin, there's a reason why Austin talks about his millennium alliums. And that's just because that plant is a really tough plant and it can take a lot of cold. And
It's so pretty.
yeah.
Yeah, if y'all don't know, if you haven't, again, I'm talking a lot, like if you're new to the podcast, one of Austin's absolute favorite plants is allium. He's got a cute little perfect row of them right beside his sidewalk that he is so proud of when
Yep.
they are in full bloom. Because they're gorgeous. I've started planting them and I love it. Like the leaves come up, they're super clean, super green. And then those cute little perfectly round blooms. And some of them are huge.
Yeah.
What a magical plant.
Let's also talk about something else while we're on green things this time of year. If you are living in an area where everything else is dormant, but you look out and you see a sea of green, like maybe in a farmer's field or neighbor's yard, you may or may not know that is annual ryegrass that can overwinter and give you some lush, fluffy green. So, it is possible to have that. Is it native or natural? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
No,
But
but
you could do it if you're
Yeah.
tired of looking at deadness.
and some people use it as a green manure, as a cover crop.
Yeah.
And they don't let it reseed. They just simply turn it in and let it break down.
Every year I want to try a cover crop in my raised beds, and I never get it down in time, so I've never done it.
It's all about timing.
Yeah.
All about timing.
I'm always way late to the game, and I'm like, crap, I forgot about that one.
Well, I was late with crimson clover, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna try it.
Yeah. Did it work?
It did.
How late did you try it, though?
Like around this time of year,
Really?
or February, maybe. Yeah.
So there's still hope for me to try it.
It still came up. It came up later, obviously. Like having it over winter equals more nitrogen fixation.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's like you're supposed to scatter it in October
Right.
or November. So, I still enjoyed the blooms. It still came up and covered this whole little area where I had a bunch of like weeds and terrible grasses. Unfortunately, the weeds and terrible grasses did come back after that. It's not a
As
fix.
they always do. There's no fix for weeds and terrible grasses unless you do something drastic, which I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Fire, smothering, and the dreaded
Even
chemical.
smothering does not work.
Yeah.
You smother them, they come right back. I know I won't do chemicals, so not an option for me. I mean, smothering will keep them at bay for quite a while. And if you're good at like weeding the edge of the bed and like keeping it out, then yeah, it's not too bad. But once they take over,
Yeah.
it's a nightmare.
Rough.
A rough, rough nightmare. Speaking of nightmares,
Yeah.
this past Saturday was not a nightmare. We had Mr. Adam
you almost
Chapman.
had me there.
We had Adam Chapman on as a special guest
Yep.
this past week. As always, it's wonderful to have him sit in, hear his knowledge. You all know he loves talking Abelia.
Yeah. We had a lot of good questions too, both related to, Abelia and other things.
Edgeworthia. I got to talk a
Edgeworthia.
little bit about my Edgeworthia.
You got a lot about houseplants in at the end too.
We got a lot of houseplants in. Yeah, it was a good episode. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, Adam Chapman did sit in and join us. And we've got myself, Tyler, Josh Carey, and David Bates.
That's right.
Enjoy. Well, this is a good segue to our first question of the morning.
Excellent.
I bought a few trees that I got from the Bates sale, and I already planted them. Good job. I'm so proud of you. I've planted none. How often do I water them in the winter?
Generally speaking, if we get an inch or more in any kind of rain event, even half an inch it's a pretty good amount of rain, and you can consider that a watering. Mm-hmm. But once a week, usually right now when things are dormant, I'll check on them once a week if they're newly planted.
Yeah.
And if the soil is still moist,
Leave it alone.
should
Walk
be
away.
good. So. But that's not to say I have had to water stuff in the winter. We've had dry winters, so you just gotta
But it's still so much easier than planting in the summer.
Oh,
When you
very
have to
true.
water
Absolutely.
Very
every
true.
day sometimes because it just dries up.
Now, one thing you need to consider too when you're watering at this time of year is the air temperature, because you want to disconnect the hose pipe.
Correct.
I always forget that.
You have to
Yep.
disconnect the hose pipe.
Yep.
Hose pipe, David. Hose pipe.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, Joyce has a question. She planted a blue atlas cedar yesterday. She's asking, should it be okay?
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be
Air
way better
horseman.
than in a pot. So
Yeah. The only way it wouldn't be okay is if it wasn't dormant.
Mine did
And I'm
not
pretty
like
sure it's
wet
dormant.
water. Yeah, mine did not like
Wet water?
Wet feet.
what's a wet water?
It's really moist. Wet feet
And
at all.
All this points up again how timely this rainfall that we just got in the early morning hours and overnight was. This is perfect timing as far as Mother Nature providing moisture at the exact time when it's needed, just prior to a pretty significant freeze.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So when can I start my warm weather seeds indoors? Any tips?
I would say you can start them now if
Yeah.
you wanted to. I mean,
I started too early last year. I started in January. I think I'm going to wait until about the end of February this year for.
To start?
Yeah,
Did they
and
get leggy and too big and just
They got too early. Got out too early.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
just too soon?
Yeah, it was just too soon.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, once again, it's kind of personal.
Yeah.
At this point, personal preference. I mean, yeah, you could wait certainly until February sometime. Obviously, you got to have plenty of light.
Correct.
Got to have
Yep.
the right temperature, warming mats.
You got to
and
keep
all
them
that
moist.
stuff.
I'm bad with
Yeah.
it. I forget about things.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm
want
like,
to keep.
oh
them,
my God, my
You want to keep them
seedlings."
moist, but not too
do
wet.
we have warming mats in the garden center?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
There's Tyler's voice.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so basically you can start them whenever you want.
Sure.
Josh
At this point, yeah.
started a little early, maybe.
Well,
but-
I've got my supplemental light in the basement down there. I've got the some containers down there right now, and I'm using those for the supplemental
Sure,
light on those. So I'm okay. I think we're going to be all right.
Josh, I had to say I'm going to come down on the side with you with respect to waiting, and I think from my perspective anyway, it's the amount of time that exists between now and planting. It's not that you can't do it now, you could, but it's that much more time that you have to be tending to it and be mindful of it. So
Right.
your schedule may dictate that you're going to be gone for some period of time, and when you have these little seedlings, they're just babies.
They
And
are.
So you really need to be able to say, I'm dedicating myself to getting them taken care of on a daily basis or as needed basis. So if you shorten the amount of time before from the germination point until you get ready to plant them, I think it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm with you. I think I would wait until February before I got started with those, even though you can do it now.
Yeah. It's your
Correct.
house. You can
Yes,
do whatever you
can.
want to. Your
You know-
seeds, man.
You know what you can also
We're not here
do?
to tell you what to
can
do.
prune. And we have a
can.
lot of questions about pruning and trimming. So let's get it. Let's
Get
get
it.
it there. Let's get it there.
Let's get it
Let's
there.
get it there, everybody. All right, the first one. How do I prune a blackberry? We've had a lot of blackberry questions as of late.
Yeah, well,
But how do you do it?
With gloves on.
yes.
Yes.
Depending on the variety, most of the time
pants
you're
and
going to want.
boots?
Yes, and welding apron and all
Uh-huh.
that. Obviously you're going to have some canes that are just going to, die over a course of time. So prune all those out. Depending on how your stand is looking, like for me, I've got a pretty good stand. I'm pretty much going to prune them all back.
Yeah.
All the way to the ground.
I
Almost.
might leave a few of the younger ones up some, but
Okay.
it's just
You can't kill a blackberry
no,
pruning it.
no.
Well,
Once it's established,
Now, on this time of the year, you don't have to worry about the ticks. as
that's very
bad.
true.
So
yeah. So
Still
this is
the
a good time.
thorns,
It's a
but
good
not the
time to
ticks.
do it. It's a good time to get all the dead, at least get all the dead canes out and any kind of dead wood that you see in there. So
Those canes should make themselves apparent.
oh
too.
yeah, you'll know.
Oh, yeah.
They'll
especially
be
after the next 3 days.
yes, yeah.
On a commercial level, I even see people that have bush hogs just
Oh
if
yeah.
they're planting a road, bush hog the entire
Yeah.
road. Just set the bush hog up high, maybe at a foot and a half or so. Just cut all of it. And particularly when it comes to getting your hands in there, it alleviates a lot of
Pain.
pain and discomfort. So
Yeah,
that's another
it's
way
not
you
fun.
can do it. Would it reduce your production a little bit on the previous year's wood? Yeah, but it might be worth losing some to not lose all that blood.
Yeah, I have a whole patch of blackberries on the back of my property, and we get it bush hogged every so often. And I don't even notice a lack of production that next year.
Right.
They're just
Well, you
smaller.
can't
They're
get to
not
the
jumping
one-
out to
yeah.
get you.
Yeah, and you
because they
can't get to
out
the
of
ones in
control.
the middle because you're going to lose eyes and scrapes and
Maybe
Yep.
yourself,
Right.
if you fall in, you're never going to get out.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about pruning fruit trees.
Okay.
When should I prune my fruit trees?
Well, right now, also a great time, dormant season. What you want to be doing is applying dormant oil as well.
Amen, brother.
So you want to do that, and then while you're doing that, actually you want to prune first because you don't want to spray stuff you're going to be pruning out
Right.
anyway. So obviously, once again, if you see any dead wood, that's the first thing you prune out, and then at that point you can prune, for a multitude of reasons, either shape or just if it's getting too big, you want to kind of bring it back some in control.
crossing
Crossing
branches.
branches, kind of that kind of thing, and then when you're done with that, dormant oil.
Does that matter what variety of fruit tree it is?
Well, it can. I mean, but most of the fruit trees that we're probably talking about, your typical fruit trees, all bloom on last year's growth. So when you prune now, you're going to lose some production just because you're pruning off some limbs that are going to bloom, and each bloom is a potential fruit. So
Right.
But you kind of need to.
right, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because they'll have thousands of blooms on them, and you're not going to get thousands of fruit,
that.
and nor would you want to. You want to have a good ratio between the size of the tree and the amount of fruit, because the tree only has so much energy, and you want to actually maximize.
You don't want to be propping up your fruit trees either.
Gardening Inside Out is brought to you by Earth Mix Garden Products, creating regionally sourced high-quality soil blends and amendments for the sustainable-minded gardener. Fall and winter are great times to plant in the Southeast, and Earth Mix can help you with Landscape Soil Conditioner. Mix landscape with your native soil to feed all winter long. Added mycorrhizal fungi help your plants get established faster and increase hardiness through the year ahead. Visit earthmix.net for more information and retailers near you. Remember, success begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix Garden Products. All right, we've got a great question to follow up that Earth Mix spot. What's the most cost-effective way to fill lots of square footage and 4 new raised beds that are 8 by 4 by 2 feet deep?
Wow, that's deep.
2 feet deep. Yeah. Well, I mean, bulk garden. I mean, that's going to be the most cost effective.
That's 64 cubic feet, by the way,
Yeah,
for
that
those
would-
keeping score.
Yeah, that would be approximately for each bed, approximately 2 of our scoops, which is 1.25
Y'all are so good with math.
cubic
Might
yard-
never
cubic
figure that
yards,
out.
so-
Me and Josh over here.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
why
I
we
mean,
offer the calculator.
That's what
Correct, Tyler.
Absolutely.
Just from my experience, I've got 8 by 4 by 1 foot, and one scoop was enough to fill them up. Now, after you've got them full and you use them for the first year, you'll have to
Juice
You'll
it
have-
up a little bit.
Yeah, you'll have to put more stuff, more organic matter in it, and that's what I do with Supernatural every year.
A lot of
So-
folks start with sticks and stuff from the yard on the very base
On the bottom,
on
you
the
can
bottom.
do that,
and it just
Yep.
it creates it up and
Yeah.
layer of
And part of the issue is that what Adam's referring to is the fact that because Earth Mix Garden Products are so extremely high in organic content, that means there is material in there that is still going to decompose, and that decomposition reduces the volume that is in there when you first purchase it. So naturally, you're going to have settling that will occur as a result of that. So what you can do, as he also alluded to, is by adding something like Supernatural to the existing soil the next year,
Yes.
you're able to supplement that void that is created due to settling and decomposition, and also add more vigor to it by incorporating newly produced compost that is enriched with endo and ectomycorrhiza fungi and humic acid, things that are extraordinarily beneficial and necessary to have great success in your gardening efforts.
I'd be very tempted to use 6 inches of native soil if you have a source for it on the bottom as well.
Yeah, you could. I mean, that would lessen the cost a little bit, although
it's a lot more work because you're shoveling it in.
Yeah.
Double it going.
You could definitely add filler to the bottom.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I do that.
Sure.
Yeah,
And
with all my raised
my
beds.
first thought was what you said first, Josh, was just to put, big limbs or just chunks of wood in the bottom, just to as a filler. I mean, that's going to break down eventually too, but at least it's something natural that's just gonna, but. Even a 2-foot bed, I would think you could just fill it with all up with garden. I mean, that's
Yes, you could. And you can get it from Bates Nursery and Garden Center and get it delivered. Hey, I think it's time for a spot, Tyler.
Is it time for, like I said, the goat? Yeah.
Well, I will try to fill the shoes. Let's see. So my goat, I have several goats. And we were discussing.
Do you?
What are their
you
names?
Do have a few.
Just
I
kidding.
know them.
Well,
goats, right?
I'm only got
We've only got one.
Yeah, I'm gonna do one today, and I'm gonna go with Abelia because it is the goat broadleaf flowering shrub. And when somebody comes into the nursery and they say, "I want something evergreen that flowers," as long as you have half a day of sun or more, that's my go-to because it's the goat.
Because you buy it now.
Now, to be
it'll be later.
most
I
accurate,
knew you couldn't miss that.
it is considered
Had it
a
before he did.
semi-broadleaf.
Yeah.
That means when you have colder temperatures,
Yes.
it's going to lose a significant amount of
Yes.
the
Now-
foliage that's on it. If
Right.
it's severe, it could lose it all. It doesn't mean it's dead. It just means it's defoliating.
Right. The only time that mine have ever, and I've had
You have Rose Creek. Is that the one you
Little
have?
Richard's what I have.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. And the only
You
time
don't want to be up Rose Creek without a paddle
That's
either.
true.
Exactly. The only time they ever lost all their leaves was in that freeze 2 years ago, and they came right back. Now mine are on the south side of my house, so there's a structure right behind them. So even in the wintertime, they're getting some residual heat from the house. So I would imagine if they were out in the open, if they were in a bed somewhere further out from the house, they would probably lose their leaves more often. But still,
So they would be
mostly-
great
Love it.
for
Yeah.
structural borders and foundations.
Yeah, foundations. You could make a border along your driveway with them. Whatever.
Ooh.
So
Now that sounds fancy. I don't have any, so I don't know.
I don't have
I don't have
any
much
yet.
to
that's
contribute
you
to this.
need to remedy that.
I do. I have a birthday coming up in May.
Well, there
But
you
you
go.
could get me some gifts early. I'd be fine with that.
We'll
I'd
see.
be okay with that. Hey, we're getting some live questions
we
in.
are.
We got one in
Yeehaw.
from Joyce. Good morning, Joyce. Good to hear from you. Joyce says, Caroline, will you cover your Edgeworthia? I will not, because I kind of like to see what my plants do in my landscaping and where I am, although that one is kind of border. I think it's 2 zone 7. So if you're really worried about it, you could cover it, but all those buds are set for the late winter, early spring. So if I were to cover it, I would make sure I had some kind of structure underneath that blanket that was keeping any weight off of that plant.
Yeah, because their buds should be budded up right now.
Oh, mine is fully
Oh,
budded
yeah,
up. It's
yeah.
gorgeous. They're like leaning
Yeah.
down like little snowdrops.
Yeah, you don't want to break those guys off.
No, you don't. So make sure it's very protected. You've got something very sturdy, especially if we get some winds and some heavy rain that come in with that.
Yep.
And a note on covering anything, and this kind of ties back if people come out today and see that we're in this process of covering things up. Covering is very appropriate to do for to cover during a short-term window of extreme weather. But you want to be able to get that off of it. You'll notice that we don't leave them on there when the weather warms up. So it's not like you do it in December and you take it off in March. You can do more damage by leaving it on there too long than it would if you didn't cover it at all. So it does require some sense of what the conditions are like and monitoring the actual weather and what the covering you're going to do. If it's turns out to be really sunny, you start building up heat in there, and you don't want that. So just be mindful if you're going to cover things of what the weather's giving you. If it's overcast, it's not really affecting much because it's not going to be building up heat. So it's a nuanced kind of thing that you just need to be apprised of what the outside conditions are and how that can change quickly what it feels like from the plant's perspective under this cover.
And don't use plastic.
Correct. It needs to be
Particularly
breathable.
don't use it directly against the plant.
Right.
Right. You can use plastic if it's part of a structure. It's not touching any green stuff. But.
Right.
Any green stuff. Hey, we got a question about Abelia from Jane
All
Ann
right.
Gibbs.
All right.
There it is.
She's saying, Abelia is on my someday list. Same girl. Does it work well for cut flowers or foliage usage?
Certainly for foliage, definitely, and it would be. I mean, all kinds of. Each season it's different foliage wise. Like in the wintertime, it turns burgundy most of the time.
Wow.
So.
I do need to get me some of that.
Yeah, and so it's going to start blooming, say mid to late spring, and then as long as it's flushing new growth, it's going to keep blooming until I've had mine with blooms on them on Thanksgiving. So
You're really talking me into this. I'm like, I'm
just
going to go
saying.
see what we have in stock right now when I get I can't do that. I have too many plants, and y'all know my New Year's resolution, so it's not going to happen. Anytime soon. And then Joan Dodson asks, with the fires in LA and hearing about forest management, I was curious if you know if there are things that the forestry department does in our area. I know we talk about invasive species like Bradford pears. Are there maintenance practices for our neck of the woods?
I'm sure there are.
Yep. There is, and that's all up to the forestry department and all that.
The one thing that I think is important to be mindful of is the climatic conditions that we have are vastly different than what we have
really
in Southern
different.
California. We easily get 3 to 4 times as much rain in a year than they get, and they tend to get it all in one go.
Right.
So they get this.
It's usually right after the
undergrowth.
it's usually right after the fire, so it turns into mudslides.
They get this huge flush of undergrowth, which is a lot of vegetative underfoot, so to speak, and then it stops raining, and then all that dies off, and then there's fuel on the ground. So we rarely have those kind of conditions. I have seen it a couple of times in the last couple of decades, but these are conditions for us that persist perhaps over a period of weeks or maybe a month during the most extreme drought for us. It's a very different thing there. I do see that there will be certainly, Josh, from your perspective in the building codes, they're going to look at rebuilding things a lot differently. I think that the more careful use of native plants and things that are more adept at dealing with fire hazard situations, things that are non-native upright conifers, maybe something that they look at and go, you know what, these are dangerous to have in this area because they have a lot of highly volatile fuel in them. I mean, it ignites very
Even
easily.
palm trees lose a significant amount of foliage every year. So I mean, and there again, we don't have things like Santa Ana winds here.
No.
Okay, I mean,
No. It's a very specific set of circumstances that they have to deal with, and I'm confident as they rebuild, and it's going to be, I'm going to
Decades.
say, take a decade to
Easily a
undo all
decade.
of that damage.
Well, that's
They'll look at every aspect of it, and I have seen some prime examples of homes that survived almost unscathed because they had adhered to some, self-appointed fire standards where they had a buffer zone around that. Now we don't have to do that here.
And again, there were wood shake shingles were very popular in Southern California. That's not a good idea. They had a lot of wood siding houses that were there in those areas, and it was just the nature of. They also had a lot of adobe again, but they're in a seismic zone as well. So when you have brick and you have these kind of things, there's all kinds of rules and regulations that they go along with.
I'd just like to add that the forestry department also does prescribe fire burns of understory growth. And when things are extremely dry, they issue burn notices burn bans and have red flag warnings if there are conditions for sparking fires. The closest example would probably be the fires in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, in the mountains.
Right. That was as close an example as you're going to find.
That was in around 2015 or 2016 when it got extremely dry. It takes a lot, though, to get there.
And we had in that same scenario, Tyler, they also had a storm of wind at that same point in time. It was
wind and dry.
It was just one of those things that goes along with it. But in some of the campgrounds, and particularly the core properties that they have, the campgrounds, you can't even bring firewood in anymore because they're worried and concerned about bringing in pests.
Right, that's true.
So there are a lot of programs that are out there that are run. So. And they do a good job.
They do a great job. But we're thinking about everyone out there in LA.
Absolutely.
Yes. So when should I trim my boxwoods is going to be our next question. I know we get that often, but let's go ahead and answer it because this is one of our viewers.
Yeah, well, I would say you don't have to do it now, but certainly before you get your first good flush in the spring would be probably optimal. So sometime over the next month or so, you want to get in there and with some either hand pruners or shears or electric,
So many options.
Sharp and clean.
Yeah. Sharp and clean. That's what matters.
And while you're doing that, you can check for diseases and pests. And all that
Gives you a chance to really look
have
at
your
it.
designated shears for your boxwoods.
Yep.
Yeah, that is important with boxwood.
Yep. You want to clean and sanitize them after you use them for sure. Yep.
Additional support for Gardening Inside Out is brought to you by Bates Nursery and Garden Center, a third-generation nursery located in Nashville, Tennessee, and 20-time recipient for Nashville's Best Garden Center, offering the widest selection of new arrivals for fall, like specimen conifers, Japanese maples, and pansies in nearly every color. Open year-round, minutes from the heart of Nashville in beautiful Whites Creek, Tennessee. Browse their selection online anytime at batesnursery.com. Bates Nursery and Garden Center, beautifying Nashville since 1932.
We got a live question about some of the plants. What is the difference between a ficus plant and a rubber plant? How do you care for a rubber plant in terms of watering and pruning? So a rubber plant is a ficus. So it is lumped in with the fiddle-leaf fig that everybody knows, with the Benjamina ficus. I mean, ficus is very broad. There are so many different types, and a lot of them do have a very different look, so people are often very surprised that they are in the same grouping. But with this rubber plant, so you want to let it dry all the way between waterings. These can sit dry for an extended amount of time, and it is good to let them sit dry every so often at least. So make sure they're not staying wet. Water it thoroughly when that soil does dry out. When I say thoroughly, make sure water is coming out of the bottom of the pot. So it's getting to those new roots. A lot of people make the mistake of watering very often, but not enough. They'll come in and their ficus in particular, they're like, it's dropping leaves. It's the lower leaves. It's the older ones. And I ask them how often are you watering? They'll say every other day. And I'll say, well, how much are you watering? They're like, a cup. But if you think about a pot that's about 14 inches in diameter, so it's going to be about this deep, if you're giving it a cup or 2 cups of water every 2 days, that's only hitting not even the top inch of soil and not even spreading out evenly. So it's not getting to the new roots at the bottom of the plant.
Right.
So we need to make sure we're thoroughly watering it and it will be happy. And as far as pruning it goes, you can really cut on these plants anywhere. Ficus are really, really fun to prune. I talk about a Ficus lyrata that I have at my house that I just give a clean chop to every spring when I put it outside. I defoliate the whole plant. I cut it back so the trunk is getting thicker and thicker. It's staying in check and it's staying really clean. So as long as you make sure you cut just above at least one leaf node, so that's going to be where the leaf comes out because that's where the new growth is going to push from. You can cut it back wherever you'd like.
Yeah. And Edward, an ant can move a ficus. It can't move a rubber tree plant. We all know that, right?
Do we?
Yeah, we do. Ants can't move rubber tree plants, can they, David?
Well, Josh,
it's a song about
depends
it.
on whether you're getting a horticulture device from a song or whether it's in real life.
Okay.
I would say ants collectively can do quite a lot of amazing things. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to underestimate the actual powers of ants.
They are
But a
amazing.
singular ant,
But
no.
bring the uncles in is when you have the problems, David.
Uncles are never part of the equation, Josh.
No, they weren't.
Ants are the most fun.
Yeah.
I will say that. But hey, we did get another ficus question in. How do I repot a big root-bound fiddle leaf fig without making them mad and throwing off all their leaves? Should I wait till spring? They are currently happy, but definitely need a repot. So Ficus lyrata fiddle leaf fig, yes, that is one of the more temperamental plants when you go to repot them, I will say. So I pot these up a little bit differently than I typically would most of my other houseplants. What I will do when I repot fiddle leaf figs, and I have repotted so many fiddle leaf figs at my home, at my friend's home, I will go to people's houses and repot them. I will have the pot ready that it's going into. I will go ahead and pre-moisten the soil, just make sure it's not too dry in that new pot. I will pull up that fiddle leaf fig from its original home, and usually I will rough up the roots just a little bit, but I usually try to kind of leave this one alone. I let it stay exactly how it is, put it in its new home, pack that new soil around, give it a really good watering. I'll usually water it thoroughly about 3 times, get it in the same spot, and I find that it does a lot better that way. Make sure you do it. Yes, wait until the spring or even the summer to repot it. It's going to be so mad if you repot it right now. But just
sneak
basically
up on it.
sneak up on it. Yeah.
Don't give it any warning.
Don't disturb it too
on,
much. Don't put it in a new spot. And also make sure you don't pot it up into a much, much larger size. I always tell people you really only need to go up 2 inches in diameter. If it's a faster growing plant, maybe 4 inches tops, but 2 inches, I would say is typically a pretty good number.
Yeah. And if you need a visual reminder of it, Austin did a great video a couple of years ago. It's got way over 100,000 views on it. That will tell you all about doing it, and you can watch him as many times as you need to make sure you got it. It's not complicated, but he does a great job.
It's a great one, and it has a lot of views. I know he watches how many views it's going up to. He checks
It's
it
important
often.
to Austin.
It is
And
those views.
He likes looking at the comments too.
So y'all get on and give him more views on that. I mean, it is up there. Let's get our last question in of the morning.
Okay.
How close do I need to plant blueberries for best production?
As long as they're in the same yard, the bees.
But what if your yard is 6 acres?
It probably would be okay. I mean, the pollinators are gonna, fly and flit about the flowers.
That is true.
So I would say as long as they're in the same yard, generally within the same half acre, we'll say, you're good.
Amazing.
So.
Plant multiple ones too.
Yes.
Yes.
They will
All
cross. They
different
will
varieties.
cross pollinate all kinds of ways. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, folks, the music means that we're finishing up this edition of Gardening Inside Out.
Right.
Next Saturday morning, we'll come back here to the Green Room Studios, right here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, and we'll have another Gardening Inside Out. Hey, folks, if you're on social media, whether you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, or you're on YouTube or Twitch, hey, like, share, tell us all about it, and we want to keep coming back, and you know what? I think we will. We'll see you next Saturday morning right here from the Green Room Studio at Bates Nursery and Garden Centers.
Thank you for tuning into the Gardening Inside Out podcast. If you're looking for more information or more from your hosts, don't forget that we have a live Saturday morning broadcast, 8 a.m. Central Time on YouTube and Facebook. You can also follow us on our Instagram channel. That's @Gardening Inside Out for more posts, reels, and in-depth dives to topics and things we've discussed on the show. If our content resonates with you, consider giving us a follow, like, and subscription on all of our social media pages. See you next time.